In Scott County, Ajay Patel, LEX 18 News.
Now coming up at 11, Ellen Ice speaks with Christian Best's family, the victim of Friday's deadly shooting.
Well, the wind has been Roll call.
John Coleman,
Here.
Kim Prepper,
Here.
David Henson,
Here.
Ronnie Maines,
Here.
Jason Payne,
Here.
Jenna Smith.
Here.
All right, seeing as we have a quorum, I call the Williamstown City Council Special City Council Meeting, April 15th, 2025 to order. And I request that all guests please sign in if you have not done so already. At this time, would you please stand as Councilor Coleman leads us in a word of prayer?
Let's bow our heads. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day, Lord. We thank you for the time that you've given us here tonight to conduct our city's business. Lord, would you just pray, just watch over all of us and let everything done here tonight satisfy you and glorify you. In your precious name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Please remain standing as we say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. We have a couple quick announcements. The Household Hazard Waste Collection event is taking place Saturday, April 19th from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. That will be at the Grant County High School parking lot. The address is 715 Warsaw Dry Ridge. If you have any questions, please see the Grant County Solid Waste Coordinator, Mr. Brian Miles, who is with us today. Next, we have on May 3rd, we have the Williamstown 5K Derby Dash, the annual Derby Dash put on by Fitness for Life around Grant County. You must register by this Sunday, April 20th, 2025. You're going to get a t-shirt for that. Come out for that, and trying to find the time of the start. Yeah, the race starts at 8:30. And then we have our third annual Mother's Day Tea Party, and that will be held at the Williamstown High School, 300 Helton Road, Williamstown, on May 8th. Adults are $15, children 12 and under are free. Please come out and attend that. And with that, the announcements are done.
I have an announcement there, Mayor.
Absolutely.
I have an announcement here, the Williamstown City Council. This is an agenda of a special meeting that will be Monday, April the 21st, 2025, 9 a.m. at the Williamstown Judicial Center Courtroom, Williamstown, Kentucky. I have a copy of this agenda for the newspaper or anybody that needs it. Thanks. And copies for all.
Sir, thank you. All right. Any additional announcements, council? At this time,
When is Derby Day, Mayor?
May 3rd.
Third?
Yes, sir.
Is Marshall Bott still in charge of coordinating that? You might want to reach out to Todd for EMS if he has to.
Okay. I will reach out to her and let her know. Thank you. Mr. Wakeman, would you care to read resolution number 2025-03 adopting and approving the municipal aid co-op program by title only, and summarize, please?
Resolution adopting and approving the execution of a municipal aid co-op program contract between the Incorporated City of Williamstown and the Commonwealth of Kentucky Transportation Cabinet, Department of Rural and Municipal Aid for the fiscal year beginning on July 1, 2025, provided in Kentucky Revised Statutes and accepting all streets referred to therein as being streets which are a part of the incorporated city. By summary, it's a contract that's required by the state for the municipal aid that's provided to the city for the maintenance of roads and streets.
Right. Any questions from the council? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the resolution 2025-03.
Make that motion.
Motion by Councilor Prepper, seconded by?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Councilor Maines. Roll call, please.
John Coleman,
Yes.
Kim Prepper.
Yes.
David Henson.
Yes.
Ronnie Maines,
Yes.
Jason Payne,
Yes.
Jenna Smith.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Moving forward, grant and debt update. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to inform you that, Superintendent Joe McComas had applied for a grant for $1.52 million for a project, and he was awarded that grant. Our part would cost us about $284,000, and we will need to include that in the upcoming budget. But congratulations to Superintendent Joe McComas for getting a $1.52 million grant. The second grant that the city recently received was the city applied for the $10,000 from Interact for Health to fully sponsor this year's Marigold Day again. And last week I received an email that we have been awarded the $10,000 grant from Interact for Health to sponsor Marigold Day. There's two grants that we just received in the last week. Why don't we do some calculations real fast? You guys recall the last council meeting or so, we discussed the long-term obligation debts for the city of Williamstown, and they're broken up into 11 different loans. One thing that I did was we had a Superintendent Mark Miller and I, along with Superintendent Tim Beach, had a pretty extensive meeting with the company Heisen, and they're going to start assisting with looking at hiring an engineer for some of the projects that they need, and they also believe that they can get some grant funding for the water and wastewater facilities. And that is a big portion of where our debt comes from. The debt that we have, there are 6 different loans that the water and the sewer department have collectively. That would be the rural development loan, a loan from Truist Bank, a loan from Fort Bank, a loan from KLC, and then a few loans from the KIA. One thing I did was had a very interesting conversation with Superintendent Tim Beach and Superintendent Mark Miller to discuss an idea that I had after reviewing some KRS ordinances. So I had reached out to KIA. I wrote a letter to KIA asking if they would forgive our loans as we move forward. Hang on one second. Because to date, I calculated with the loans that the water department and sewer department collectively pay is $1,333,000 a year annually that we pay on. So trying to eliminate some of that debt is something that I'm focused on, especially given the fact that we have several big issues within the sewer department and the water department. If you'll allow me a second, I don't have the exact number here, although I wrote it down. It's just not on me. If we were to have this eliminated, if they would eliminate this debt for us, that would be, that's not right, hang on, I did something wrong. That'd be $12 million worth of debt that would be forgiven through the KIA loans. I submitted a very thorough letter to KIA requesting that they consider forgiving the portions of our debt that we have through KIA, and hopefully if that comes through, then we can eliminate $12 million worth of city debt for the sewer and the water departments. I have not heard back from them yet. I took Thursday and Friday to work on that letter, and then yesterday I had a meeting with Superintendents Mark Miller and Tim Beach to review and then write a few additional things to kind of explain here's things that the water and the sewer department need, and they need it now to continue, but unfortunately we have a lot of debt overhead. If you recall, and I don't know if you guys have this on you or not, but the yearly amount of debt that we have is broken up for each of the loans. And my position here would be, if we could get this debt forgiven, we should, I mean, this is already factored in and accounted for in every single budget that we do because it's debt. But if we got it eliminated, we could focus that finances on repairs and maintenance and upkeep and things like zebra mussels, and this could go a long way. So I'm very excited about that. I hope it works. If they forgive all of our debt, or even if they forgive a portion of it, if you divide that $12 million, $419,000 in half, even if they divided it in half, it'd be $6 million worth of debt removed, which I think would be great, but let's just hope and pray that that works. Do we have any questions?
I'm just curious, how likely is that, and who's advising you on going this route? I've never heard of anybody wanting to, forgive debt like that. At $12 million, I don't know if anybody would do that amount of money.
KIA stands for the Kentucky Infrastructure Authority, and they're set up by statute to provide financial assistance for various reasons for water and wastewater services. So there are opportunities to get grants, and if you recall what Councilor Crupper said at the last meeting, there are times where they will provide a very low interest loan, they will forgive portions of the debt, and sometimes they forgive the entirety of the debt on the spot. So given a lot of the criteria involved in the KRF statutes, I didn't think it was a bad idea to ask if they could forgive that debt, because one of the loans doesn't end until 2032, another one doesn't end until 2033, and then another one ends in 2038.
I think it's an idea. I've never heard of. I mean, is there any other cities that have done this before, or any other examples that you have that they've worked with to forgive that amount of debt?
So by statute, the General Assembly every year in the state organizes this this thing that works with water and wastewater services. So the whole system is a governmental ran loan program, and I attended a Northern Kentucky ad meeting where I saw one city receive a loan, and then the next motion that was made was the KA completely granted them their loan completely forgive on the spot. So it's not unheard of to have that loan forgiveness happen. Now, in my research, did I go looking to see if anybody had asked for that before? No, but I figured it was worth a shot, especially given the criteria of what is involved to even get those loans. And obviously we meet certain criteria because we have 3 loans through them.
So when did you apply?
I just submitted a letter asking them to forgive the debt. I sent that today.
So when will we know? Will we get like a no, or like if we don't?
My assumption is, because I addressed it to the board, they would need to discuss that at a board meeting. I don't know how often, if it's quarterly or monthly or what that looks like for the board, but my hope is that we will hear something within the next month or so. And if it's a no, it's a no, but it's worth a shot to try to eliminate some of this debt. Because I petitioned with providing a lot of examples of areas where the water and wastewater department need various things. And I said, unfortunately, we're not in a position to acquire those things. I said, however, if you look at our yearly debt ratio, if this debt were eliminated just through KIA, that doesn't excuse the other 3 loans for I guess 4, because we have KLC, Fork Bank, Truist Bank, and the Rural Development Loan. So it wouldn't eliminate all their debt completely, but for the KIA loans, $12 million is not a bad option.
Now, who did you say was hiring the engineer?
So we, I didn't say anybody was hiring the engineer, assisting with looking for an engineer, because there are certain types of grants that you can apply for that will cover the cost of engineering fees. So we're currently working with the company to discuss the potential to apply for this grant that would cover the cost of the engineering fees along with the services that we're looking at.
And how far out would that be?
How far out would what be?
Would you receive this grant that would cover the engineering?
We have a meeting set up for Monday to discuss what process and steps we need to take. I don't know, I just found out about it
I
yesterday.
guess we talked last meeting about hiring an engineer because Tim can't get anything done down at the water plant for repairs of the zebra mussels or his pumps or anything unless he has an engineer to describe the problem, which is what all the repair companies are looking for. So I'm just wondering, is that gonna get done?
Yes, so if we put it in a project profile, which is something that we need to do, and we can do that through the state, we can also apply for various grant opportunities that way. And some of those grants that we're focused on specifically will assist with covering the cost for engineering fees and pre-schematics.
So are you opposed to hiring an engineer, even if it's by a case-by-case basis?
Not opposed to it. The question is where does that money come from in a line item budget?
We have several times changed the budget, line item budget to adjust to different areas. So, that's just a matter of getting it done. My thing is, we'll never get these zebra mussels situation under control until we do something, which has been over a year now, and we really, if you think about it, have done nothing. And now with warmer weather coming, those zebra mussels are just gonna multiply even more. I'm saying there's a sense of urgency.
Yeah, so I don't disagree. I feel like a month or so ago, Tim had an action plan that the council turned down.
He had a plan to put a chemical in the water that was gonna cost $4,000 that may or may not work, which, by the way, did not work. So, that's not a plan. That was just that was for a one-off issue.
Yes, but the scope of what you're seeking for an engineer is to do some work to the raw water intakes for the water plant. That does not eliminate the zebra mussel issue whatsoever. It just covers the way the water comes in.
It would help with the way the zebra mussels are coming in through the intake. It could put its money and engineering for the screens in the equipment that is breaking down. We have literally pumps breaking down
Yes.
due to the zebra mussel issue, which is yet to be addressed.
I think we've addressed it for the last
What have you
2.5
done?
years.
What's been done?
We have, do you really want to get into this?
I really don't, because nothing's been done.
That's your perception of things, though.
All I'm asking for,
Okay, so I have a question. Let me ask you, and I'm not trying to be rude, but suppose, no, I'm not. Suppose we put money aside for an engineer, and we get this thing engineered. Where's the money gonna come from to follow through with the rest of that? And I'm saying I'm in the process of trying to apply for a grant.
I've been hearing about grants for a year now, and I don't see any. I do know budget season's coming, so if we get an engineer and we know there's a solution to a problem, there's this thing called budgeting that we could budget for. I mean, we waited over a year, wait until July, is probably not gonna hurt anything,
It waited longer than a year, but okay.
whatever.
Okay.
A couple questions there.
Counselor Crawford.
You talked about, you said you actually just sent a letter out today for loan forgiveness through KIA. You've sent it out today, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Whitman, did you review all those letters he sent out today, or did you see him or anything?
I did not.
Okay. Now, for 2024, you missed the deadline for a KIA grant then. Have you or Tim Beach made any effort to apply for a KIA grant for 2025?
So we did submit something last year. We didn't,
No, you missed it. You missed your deadline last year. So you didn't get your KIA grant last year for 2024. This year, for 2025, have you or your superintendent put anything in for a KIA 2025 grant? For anything, it's water line, water replacement improvements. That's what that circles around, is what that does.
yeah, so, yes,
So you have applied or you've put something in for your 2025 KIA grant?
yes, we put something in.
Okay, if you have put that in, please get us a copy so the council can see what you have put in for review. That's what the KIA is established for. It's an annual, for all cities, even counties, for water line replacement, water line improvement. That's what that is. So here we are in the middle of April. If you should have already had that. If you have it, please get us a copy. If you could get the copies tomorrow, email it to all of us, because we would like to see what you have applied for.
Okay.
So that's what I would like to know, because 2025 is, you're well into this year for these kind of grants.
Yeah, we submitted it October of last year, I believe, October, November.
If you have, that's great. We would like to have a copy of what you have submitted for the grant.
Okay.
Okay.
I just had a question. When will the grant be awarded? When was the deadline to have the grant in? When would it be awarded?
Deadline to have the grant in, or?
For the grants that Kim was just talking about.
So, that I don't know, which is sort of why I was working with that company last week to review our project profile and see what needed to be done from here so that we can maximize things.
I thought you said you already applied for the grant.
Yes, but we
But
can
we
apply
don't know
for
when,
more than one
the
grant.
one that you applied for, though, I didn't know when the deadline was for that, like when we would know if we were gonna be awarded.
Yes, that I don't know. That was through the Northern Kentucky ad. They assisted with that. Tim Beach, Superintendent Beach may know the answer, but I don't. Off the top of my head.
If you've applied a project for that, you should have that on file.
It is. There's a project
Okay.
profile.
Okay. Tomorrow get that for us, please.
Okay.
A little remiss here, having dealt with grants for 25 years. Anytime a grant was ever submitted, I had to come to council, tell you guys what was going on, get approval that we would provide the matching grant, or if it wasn't a matching grant. And I'm sort of curious of why that doesn't transcend from the top. And there's so many grant avenues at the federal and state level that if you're not on top of it and not applying and not meeting the deadlines and not putting projects together, then you're missing out on millions of dollars. It's all well and great. Maryville paid $10,000, it's a drop in the bucket compared to one Joe wrote. But you still have to do the matching grant. And those guys will figure this out. But I've currently got 2 grants that were open from when I was fire chief that have to be closed out. There's no one that is real versed in the grant process of closing out federal grants, closing out the fire commission grant. And I'm getting emails that, hey, these grants are due to be closed out. I'm not getting paid to do it. So somebody needs to figure out who's going to take charge. If you want to do the close the grants out and do the work that I've done in the past, then I expect to be compensated for it. I think that's only fair. I've got other obligations family to take care of, and we talked today about taking care of the SAM registration site. Nobody else knows how to do that. It's me. So that's gonna have to be done. I don't mind doing those things, but to not be compensated for someone's time and effort, and if you've never administrated a federal grant, you can go over to the jail and get locked up if you screw them up, all right? You have to follow the roadmap laid out. You gotta cross your T's, dot your I's. It's gotta be done. And it affects you if you don't close grants out in a timely fashion. And I think what you're talking about, forgiving debt, I don't know how that would play out in future grant obligations. Probably no harm, no foul. There's several grants when you're going into them, you declare a hardship and they will scrub the matching fees. But if you don't have somebody following the grants, looking out for the grants, knowing how to prepare a grant and the process, then you're behind the 8 ball. You're not going to get those federal monies that you should be able to recoup. I always had to come to council and present my grant proposals and say, this is what I'm doing. And you guys give me, yeah, we'll go for it, or no, we won't. I don't know how it operates from the top down, but I would think that our city council should be versed in what's being applied for and what's being asked for. If you're asking to forgive a debt, then I wouldn't want to find out about setting up here, because that would just sort of shock me. I think Jason was shocked just a little bit over. If that can happen, more power to you. I think that's great, but don't let that harbor you getting future grants and such. But I told my wife I needed to close these out, and she said, you're raking ass. She said, you're not getting paid to do this anymore. So somebody needs to do it. I'm just giving you a heads up. There's 2 or 3 out there that need to be closed out just for the fire department. KLC offers little grants throughout the year for PPE and safety aspects, for sidewalks. If you're not applying for them, you're missing the boat, you're missing the money.
Those don't come out until September, and we were awarded that one last year. I was gonna apply for it again this year, but.
Well,
that
there's
doesn't
2
come out.
per year, and then there's a safety grant and there's a PPE grant. I always try to do those every year and make sure we got that, and it's almost a guaranteed money. If you get your receipts in and your invoices and your canceled checks, it pretty much so flows through. But I'm just giving you a heads up that while you were discussing grants, that however you all want to address that, I can't do it for free.
So, a couple things to your point. One, I have no record that I'm looking at right here regarding any fire grants. Not that we don't, none of them are on here. So, if you could please provide me some of that paperwork, so that way I can understand those grants. Secondly, I don't disagree with you regarding there needs to be project profiles and a lot of legwork that needs to be done before applying for the grants. Now, coming into office, trying to learn as much as I can, that's one thing that I've learned we haven't done. So a lot of this is trying to play catch up to do that exact thing. A lot of these things I've discussed with various entities like KLC before. They said, we'll just apply for grants. Okay. But nobody told me, well, you got to create a project profile. Okay, well, what does that look like? So a lot of that I'm trying to get done now, and have been working on over the past 6-7 months.
No disrespect, but you've been in office for 2.5 years, and you should have been doing it from day one. There's no excuse for not seeking the federal dollars that are out there, the state dollars that are out there. And no disrespect.
I don't take it as disrespectful. I'm saying that when I inquired about loans, nobody told me, well, you need first to create project profiles. So I'm behind the 8 ball because here I am trying to chase grants without being aware of what steps that need to be taken beforehand.
It took me 10 years to become proficient at grant writing, and 15 years of managing grants since 2009. So it's something you're not going to learn overnight. You have to have help doing it. You have to have somebody proficient at writing it and reviewing it and sharing it. It helps to have a committee that you're discussing playgrounds, you're discussing parks, and it's just not coming from one person, his ideal. It's coming from a collaborative group as a village, as a community. And that adds a lot to your grant proposals. So I think you as a city and the council need to really sit down and think about that and putting more legwork into it. Because it's a full-time job for a grant writer and administrator to keep up on everything.
Yes.
And I wrote grants for the police department, I've helped the water department, so I'm not tooting my horn, I just know it's intensive and you have to stay on top of it, so, thank you.
Thank you.
One thing that you mentioned early on, and he was talking about water and sewer, on these grants or loan forgiveness that was done for the water plant and the sewer plant. You gotta keep in mind, when that was done, we had an engineer through HDR. They had their engineering firm that designed and built the plant. HDR assumed responsibility and bought out Quest Engineering. So when they were on board working on that, you had an engineer then that worked for loan forgiveness or grants. That's important. We've told you that a lot of times. You can't just apply for a grant to say, hey, I'd like to apply for $1 million grant. Well, what are you gonna do with it? Well, I might wanna do this, I wanna do that. When we, for example, built the water plant, or you built a sewer plant, you hired an engineering firm, you advertised for the engineering firm, the contractor, they found it, they designed it, they went out, they found the monies. It was a project. It was a project that was collectively put together for a purpose of borrowing money. So, talking about borrowing money, if you don't have a project to put it on, it's like what Mr. Henson pointed out a while ago about your zebra mussels. This has been talked about a lot of times. You've got to have an engineering firm that's going to design the thing so they understand the volume of water. You can't just go buy a screen and wrap it around like it's a hat. It's got to be a design build, so when you go borrow the money, this is the purpose of the money to do this, then yes, you've got your project in place. It simplifies how you probably could get a KIA grant, whether it's KIA or it's through the Federal Home Administration on federal grants like what Les just talked about. There's a lot of pieces that come into it. Yes, it's nice you want to write a letter, but it's far larger than that, is what it is. So you have to have a purpose of a project.
So,
We've talked about the most important thing really facing Williamstown right now is your zebra mussel issue. We've heard that. This is where it ought to be front and center, advertising to find out, let's find an engineer so they can design this thing, advertise to get a contractor to fix it. You got those, you can easily come up with bonding to fix that kind of project.
so in the letter, I explained various projects that need to be done, but then I also went a step further to say, part of it is the engineering stuff with the zebra mussels. But I go on to say that all these projects that I've listed prior require engineering costs. So I laid the full scope of that out there and included the fact that there needs to be engineering costs factored into this. And if that $12 million was forgiven, this is what we would do with it. So I laid it out pretty clearly and included the engineering costs.
That's a standalone project. And yes, it's nice that you wrote a letter to ask for forgiveness. There's no question about that, or create it from a debt to a grant. I wouldn't hold my breath on it, Mark, but at least it's inspiring. You've told this, and yes, it may work. Hopefully it will. Be nice if it did. You know, you talked about a Fork Bank and a Truist Bank loan. Those are short-term loans. Those are going to go away relatively quick compared to your KIAs and your other debts there. But getting back to the most important thing is that when a project is put together, there is going to be a line item in there just for engineering alone. and chances are, whatever the project is, it can be as much as 20% of the project. That's how engineers make their money.
So as I mentioned to Councilor Henson a few minutes ago, we're currently working on an opportunity for grant, but that also includes the engineering cost factored into the grant as well.
You need a project to put to it.
I just did an online search for zebra mussel mitigation. There's 15 different sources of avenues for funding grants and federal programs that could assist in that.
I'm sure, Les, if you Googled, you could find an engineer to complement that,
I
couldn't you?
probably could.
Okay.
Did you have a question?
Me?
Here.
No.
Sorry, I thought you were saying. All right. Well, this leads me to my next discussion. I think it would be wise for the city to establish a finance committee. We don't have one, and I know that I've talked with Paul Maddox and Maddox and Associates last year about creating a financial structure so that we could prioritize and, one, try and eliminate the debt, but two, focus on better spending habits for a successful future. How would the council feel about creating a finance committee? Because when I talked to some other cities, they were actually very surprised to hear we do not have a finance committee in place. Yay, nay?
I thought you already had a finance committee.
Do we?
Yeah.
Who?
6 of us sitting here.
Well, then you don't want my opinion on that.
Didn't figure you would.
Now, I think, to Kim's point, you know, we can have our meetings and we are responsible for the budget, and we are responsible for the numbers. And, you know, if you get a finance committee, whoever it is, now you got another entity involved. You got 3 different, you got the mayor, you got the council, now you got the finance committee. You know, to me, we can hammer out a budget. And we should know the budget, and we should know what the issues are. So at this point, I'm against it.
I would just say, like, what would a finance committee do? I mean, we haven't received the financial report in the last 4 months. I don't know what a finance committee would do. Would they be on site? Would it be employed? Like, you would actually hire an employee to do this? Or would they be volunteer? How would they get the information? Because I don't think we've received a financial report, to my knowledge, in the last
We've
3 or
asked
4
for
months.
reports.
Um,
We haven't received.
But how is this gonna change anything? And what would be the purpose of the financial committee? I think it's great if we're gonna get somewhere. Do you have some goals lined out for them and how they would be utilized? And, because there's nothing more than having a volunteer come in here and say, you're part of the financial committee, and then not having anything, any goals or metrics or anything for them to adhere to. So, can you give us a little bit more about your plan for the financial committee? What does this look like? And, you know, I just, kind of goes back to what Kim and John were saying, what Dave were saying, is, you know, this is your financial committee here. We're supposed to help you with the budget and everything. So I don't know what would be the purpose or the point of having this team?
To answer your last question, I think this would be a good set of eyes that would be able to create better spending habits and focus on our debt and focus on putting the city in a financial place of stability. I also think that 2 members of council should probably serve on that committee as well. Regarding the entirety and structure of it, I wanted to discuss it with council before drafting out a plan. Councilor Smith.
I was curious about the better spending habits, like what have we not done well with spending?
I think there are ways that the city as a whole could improve the way it utilizes and spends the taxpayer dollars. And I think the majority of it is tied up right here in debt. Debt that if we focused on prioritizing the way we set funds aside, for example, the GAC with the water department, 4 years from now, it's gonna cost $80,000. We already need one of the tanks replaced, so that's an $80,000 expense. If we are wise about it, it wouldn't cost us, it wouldn't break the bank in 1 year if we started putting those monies aside for future needs and goals. And I don't think the city's ever done that, which is why we have
So
this.
why do you need, I apologize, why do you need a finance committee when you just said what you need to do? Isn't this, I mean, it's the council's job, but it's your job too.
Yes, and I have worked on that this fiscal year with all my superintendents. We created a plan. Councilor Smith.
So, to me, like, better spending habits would mean that we're like spending money frivolously on things that weren't important or that the city didn't need. I feel like that we've always done a good job with the budgeting. This is my third term. So I just was curious, when you said better spending habits, to me, it's like, was there something specific that we just frivolously spent money on, or we didn't put thought into it? And I don't disagree
I wouldn't
that we need to make sure we have money set aside for things, but.
I wouldn't say frivolous spending like from departments and things like that, but more focused on future expenses.
Well, there's a
Versus-
difference between being focused, which I agree with that we need to be, and I didn't mean to interrupt. I think there's a difference between being focused and we need better spending habits. Being focused and better spending habits to me are two different things, but maybe
Spending habits usually are the superintendent will petition for things that it needs for the year during the budget season. The council will typically say, well, we don't have the funds for that, and that's about as far as it goes. So instead of saying, well, we don't have the funds for that, let's say, well, can we safely set aside $8,000 this year and $8,000 next year? And then by the third year, you have whatever is needed. But I think there's a lot of things that each department needs, but financially, they're not able to afford it. And my position is, well, if we had been saving money for all these needs, knowing that they're coming.
I take exception to frivolous for the simple fact that since I've retired, $12,000 spent on lockers at the firehouse. There was nothing wrong with the one. You signed the PO to buy them.
Yeah.
$10,000 for a set of battery struts when we already had struts on the truck. Air packs that were repaired to the tune of about $6,000 that were later donated when I had them sold for $500 a piece. Was any of that declared surplus? That's frivolous. When you don't need something and you sign a PO and they can't explain why they need it, that's frivolous. It hurts me as the past fire chief, the way some things are being done. And we'll talk about the fire chief's pay here in a minute. But frivolous spending starts with you signing the PO and executing it to be paid. I just give you about $25,000 over the past 6 months. That was frivolous. There was no need to buy any of that. So I take exception for the other superintendents that you say frivolous spending. I darn sure know they don't frivolously spend money.
I didn't say the superintendent's frivolously spent.
You said frivolous. That insinuates frivolous across the board.
No, I think what is frivolous is the fact that there is no oversight for future expenses to put money aside for council for the
They are
departments.
the oversight committee. They're the finance committee. That's why they're elected and put in their seats. You as the executive follow their budget that they set out. And then when we come to ask for something, well, we ain't got the money for that. We ain't got the money for that. But it's in black and white on my spreadsheet that I'm looking at. goes back to why we went to the fire commission for a $125,000 loan for a new truck that was already approved in 2022. Yet, for some reason, we applied for a loan when the capital improvement line shows $394,000 this year, 92, give or take.
There's still a deficit of money.
All right, where's that money? Why did we go get a loan for $125,000 for a new truck that was already approved in 2022, spec'd out, bids accepted, we knew we had $125,000 for the chassis, and then the remaining portion comes due when the truck is delivered and pushed in the firehouse.
And there was still a deficit when we created the budget.
How's there a deficit? It was $516,000. We got it less than that. $125,000 and $392,000, that adds up more than $516,000. So why did we go get a loan and apply for a loan, which we don't have to take the loan, just so you know, guys, because we have to pay that back over 10, 15 years. All right, it's a low interest loan. But why did we have to go get money for a loan when the money's already in the budget? It's already appropriated, it's in the line item on capital improvement. That is asinine that we're even sitting here talking about it. That is frivolous, blow my mind bullcrap. Why did we apply for a $125,000 loan when we already had the money set aside for the truck?
Councilor Crupper, correct me if I'm wrong, but we set money aside, but not the entirety of that, during the beginning of the fiscal year, correct?
No, that's wrong.
That's wrong.
That's wrong.
We
had the money
that's
there.
right.
The money was there.
And I questioned it, I'm sorry, go ahead.
You know, that's fine. We're on the same track. So the money was there. We approved the money in the budget to pay for it without borrowing money. In fact, where we took money to balance it for the fire department out of the general fund, we had money in another line item. We simply moved it out, made that line item less, and balanced the budget to pay for the fire truck. We were told by our former fire chief that was here, I've got an opportunity to borrow this money on a 15-year loan. We can put it on this line item here. And that's how it came to be. The money was there, Mark.
I was.
And it's still
informed
there.
otherwise, so I'm sorry.
That's okay.
The last time I looked at a spreadsheet of our budget, helping Todd out, and I'm not gonna leave him hanging. I won't do that to anybody. I try to help Rick out. I'm not gonna turn my back on him. I'm not gonna turn back on the department in the city or the city council. But things just aren't adding up. How much money is on the SAF line item right now, carry balance right now? 90,000? Have you spent any of that?
The police department has
Okay.
spent some, yes.
Well, go to the SAF, and I'm not even really wanting to talk about that tonight, but we've still not got an answer about any of that. We've not seen the breakdown on it. We've not seen the past 10 years of where that money has gone, how it's been distributed. It should have been fire, EMS, police, safety, public safety. Now, I think you could probably fudge a little bit and use it for directing traffic for a Marigold Festival, for a Derby Day Festival, but it is earmarked for public safety. So, we've still not got the answer. It's been 3 years now. Still not got that answer of the SAF breakdown. So, you're probably gonna see a open records request, because I think it's fair to the fire department, the police department, and the city council, and the city citizens to know we're taking in 50 cents off the ticket. Now, if the ARC needs to be audited, so be it. You can go on the ARC's website, and they've got it printed out how much they're sending each year. It's right there on their website. We looked at it. So, don't know, but that's a whole other ball to address. But the money was there. Great, if you need the $125,000, fine, but the money was there. So it's pretty useless to tie up a loan over the next 15 years when we might have a tanker breakdown, or something might break down, a new cascade. We can use it for things that weren't appropriated, that we found that, oh crap, this is broke, we've got to replace it. So it's in your all's ballpark, but you touched a nerve when you said frivolous. And I'm sorry, but I keep notes, I keep informed, and stuff just ain't adding up.
I apologize if you took offense to that. I was not aimed at the.
No, I think they should have taken offense to it as well.
I did.
Yeah.
I did take offense to it.
And to say you want a finance committee, they are an elected finance committee.
Mayor, if I may. So I've been on the council just shy of a year, and I came in during the budget process last year. And I don't believe one time did I hear anybody, including yourself, talk about major capital expenses that we need to put money away for going forward. I know we talked about the fire truck, but other than that, any new items, I don't recall hearing. That is precisely why, once I got on the council, I suggested we do these quarterly reports by the superintendent, and in that report are capital items needed. Because I agree with you on the fact that we need to start looking at these things long-term. But, and we need to do that, but you made a comment earlier about the way people come, superintendents come for more money on items, and the council says no. Well, that's not the case. The case is, the right time to do this is during budget season, where we're talking individually with the superintendents. Here's my needs for fiscal 25-26. Here's my needs in the future, and I'm asking that we set aside money for that in account, like they did for the fire truck, but enough money was never put aside. It was a good idea. But to Les's point, yeah, we had it fully funded for the budget for last year, and when the former fire chief came in that day and said I can get a $125,000 loan, I questioned that and saying, why do we need it when it's in the budget? So that's on record. I'm sure someone can look that up. So my suggestion is, instead of a finance committee, let's just do our job.
Well, also with that too, you have some very good utility department superintendents across the board. All of our superintendents are very conscious about how they spend their money in their budget. They come together every year. They have their wants and they have their needs every year. They want it or do they need it? And we cipher that out each and every year. But at the end of the day, you have a finance committee already here, and you've got good superintendents that really watch their dollars extremely well. All of the departments, including the fire department. You know, Todd, I'm sure you're doing the best you can with what you got to work with. Thank you.
With his help and Rick and.
Okay.
So go to the finance committee, okay.
Well, the former fire chief texted me, he says, I pushed to look and apply for the fire truck grant, because the money was gone and they froze our county funds for the next few years to offset cost as well. That comes from Chief Josh Willie. So he's watching as well. And feedback comes from our citizens, our people that work for the city. And like Kim said, our superintendents are some of the best in the damn state. And we had our needs and we had our wants. And we put off our needs and our wants from year to year, so we could get a new electric filling truck, or we could get a sewer camera, or we worked that out during the budget process. So wholeheartedly agree with Kim that our superintendents are very up on what they do, and we've got the city's, they have the city's best interest at heart.
One thing, Mark, you gotta always remember, that, you know, you've talked about a lot of debt on water and sewer tonight. But also, the council, prior to ever borrowing a dollar, we adjusted our rates because we had to prove to these loans, the loan departments, KIA and all those departments, that we could pay it back through our utility structure of monthly payments with our customers. And that includes Dry Ridge, Bullock, Penn, and the Corinth Water District. So, you know, making it sound like that, you know, we're on dire straits, that's not the case. That's why we review at least every other year. We have to review what our water bill, what's it cost to produce quality water, and also to treat sewage, so that, you know, we stay, you know, you have to prove that. And when they want, and when there's an audit done, they see that. Mr. Maddox, I'm sure, sends his audited report to all those entities to show that the city is fully invested in guaranteeing they can pay that bill annually. So, but yes, you wrote a letter. If you can come up with a debt forgiveness, good for you.
Any additional statements or questions? All right, moving on. Audit update. So I talked to the state last week. They are still reviewing our case, but they had some recommendations, and one of the recommendations was why not have Paul Maddox, who has a long-standing history with the city, perform a very specific limited scope audit. So I've reached out to Paul Maddox. He is more than agreeable to do this. He asked that I give him some time so that he could prepare what that cost would look like in a time frame to get it done. So,
What's the scope? You said limited scope, what is the scope?
like a forensic audit, like a very specific, detailed versus just a regular yearly audit that he performed. Counselor Smith.
So last week when we made the motion to move forward to call ETA, and you said you called,
Yeah, so I talked to the state, and the state said before going with somebody else, they would recommend you reach out to your ongoing relationship. And that'd be with Paul Maddox. And they said now, if Paul Maddox says no, then try somebody else, but the state's recommendation was to stick with Paul.
Just for the record, the reason why I brought up not Paul, I think the council through various votes have concurred, is to bring in a firm or a company that is just cold off the street with no inside information, no bearing, just someone that can go in and give a clean, clear audit with no preconceived ideas or preconceived paradigms or anything like that. That was the reasoning for offering, it didn't have to be that ETA, it could have been any company, but to, and then I don't even know who Paul Maddox is, so I have nothing against that company or him. I'm just saying, I thought we agreed that a company from outside the town would go in and do this audit. And, you know, I mean, why are we listening to the state on this when we run the town? Anything that the company finds out, of course you would give to the state, or if it's, you know, warranted, but there's a reason why we suggested another company.
Playing a little catch up because I wasn't here last week and I apologize. So you wanted to call the state to do the audit. Now the state's telling us to get someone else?
No.
So we're going to be behind longer? I mean,
No, so I have been in communication with the state for about a month and a half now. And so they are reviewing the case to determine whether or not they're gonna take it, but they said in the meantime, their recommendation would be have our current auditor do a limited scope forensic audit, so that way we can have some answers now. And if the state takes 5 months, then at least we have information and answers now.
Well, I believe that was our recommendation to do in the first place, but, so now it's the state's recommendation, we're gonna do it? I mean,
The state, yeah.
We made a motion too last time we met to get this,
We talked about
move
it
this forward,
months
so
ago.
it's,
Yeah, with a sense of urgency.
Yeah.
Counselor said,
So you said the state is reviewing our case to decide if they're going to take it. So we don't know for sure that they're coming. We just have to wait until they decide.
that is correct. But they said in the meantime,
They suggested that we do what we already talked about doing like 6 weeks ago.
yes.
Okay.
can we just get it done? I mean, we have to look at pricing, this, Paul Maddox has done it before, can we just, if that's the one you feel good with, can we just get it going and have them come in and do the audit?
what was the price on the one from Dave? What was their prices?
I think with two people, it was, one was $175 an hour and one was $125.
And the states was 80 an hour. They did tell me that.
Well, maybe, I don't recall
I think
offhand.
ETA was like 175 total for 2 people, like 175 an hour, like 100 and then like 75, or maybe 125 and 75, so maybe two.
Well, the state is 80 if they do it.
Yeah,
Which
and
now
that's
is-
great. I'm all for saving money, but I just don't know when the state's gonna come. How are we supposed to do a budget if we just don't even know what's there or
And
what's
as I
happening?
hear the citizens of the town, they want an audit, and they want it done yesterday. And we seem to keep dragging our feet, like the marina issue, like the zebra mussel issue, and every other issue that's been before us.
Since the state told you this about even with Paul Maddox, have you got a price from him yet?
So, if you recall, I just said
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. He
There's a lot
asked
going
to
on.
give him a little bit of time to get a timeline of when he could do it, like how long it would take for him to do, and a price. Because he understands that, because one thing that he and I did discuss is that we are on a line item budget. So I said, we need to know going in what this is gonna look like, so that way we can go ahead and start that amendment for the budget. And he is very understanding of that, and he said, give me some time, so hopefully we'll have an answer by the end of the week.
With the urgency, can the other company start soon? Or did you reach back out to them?
ETA?
Yeah.
I did not.
Okay.
But I was trying to push for the state. All right, moving forward. Discussion of transcribing council meeting minutes per Councilor Payne. Councilor Payne, you have the floor.
Okay, I think a lot of the communication, you know, to the residents here in Williamstown and different things, the history of a lot of things going on, has not been recorded for their viewing. It's not available on the website. All the 2025 minutes have not been completed or put up on the website for the public to review. I know a lot of folks are just questioning a lot of the past 2-3 months, you know, on everything and the different projects and issues and different things that have transpired with our city, and they're really in the dark because they don't have a history of the records to review or to look at. And 2 weeks ago, I offered assistance to help transcribe. There's lots of different transcribing software. I use Otter AI. A lot of times you can take an audio file, run it through the software program, and easily extract all the main points and everything that you want from each meeting that we've had in the past. I presented that 2 weeks ago and haven't heard anything from you, Mayor, if you want to utilize that. But I think we owe it to the residents to catch up on all these minutes and to be able to publicly post them. You're actually supposed to post them prior to the next meeting. By law, it's supposed to be posted prior to the next meeting. So I'm just wondering where we're at with the minutes. Why can't we get them completed and put up?
Well, the minutes have to be approved by council,
Correct?
and the clerk is the one that is to transcribe the minutes. Given the nature of what's going on, she is extremely swamped and bogged down. And unfortunately, that's a duty that the clerk does, and we can't sub that out to anybody else.
So I've offered to train your staff on using that Otter AI tool. Is that something that you're not wanting to use?
In 2023, we tried a system like that, but it did not work. We have, every microphone is completely hot right here, right now, so it picks up any and every little thing, and we experimented for a month or two in 2023, and what it says is not, I mean, you can watch the video, and what is being transcribed is not even remotely close. So we had issues with it the first time we tried it.
Okay, well, I offered that assistance. I didn't hear anything back, so I didn't know if
I was not informed of that.
Yeah, I have an email that I can read to you. I
Addressed to
sent
me.
it to you and Miss Brandy.
I thought you said you wanted to have a discussion about this in a council meeting. I apologize.
No, I asked if you would like to me to help train your staff on using that app, which I think it will work. Every time I use it, it works perfect. So
Yes.
I think AI is definitely, technology is very, very enhanced and able to do these types of, you can actually also transcribe it straight off the YouTube site. If you want to use the YouTube transcription, you can do it straight from there. But there's multiple things that can help your staff run more efficiently. And I think, we need to get these minutes out. So whatever we need to do to get these minutes out, reviewed by the council here, and completed, I would appreciate that, so.
Councilor Henson.
Yeah, so Kentucky State Statute 61.835 requires the minutes of action taken at every meeting of any such public agency to set forth an accurate record of votes and actions at such meetings, and that the minutes shall be promptly recorded, and such record shall be open to public inspection at reasonable times, no later than immediately following the next meeting of the body. So, are you okay by breaking the law like that?
No. However, given the circumstance of what's going on with the clerk's office and the issues that we're still trying to resolve and rectify.
Don't you think by now, as the leader, you should have probably come up with some kind of solution, whether it's AI or something else? Maybe having someone else from the clerk's office here doing just minutes?
The clerk, by law, is supposed to record the minutes.
Well, we don't have
nobody
a
else.
clerk, we have an assistant clerk, correct, or acting clerk?
Acting interim clerk.
Well, then
So-
maybe someone comes and records and she does it. I don't know, I'm not the mayor, but certainly by now, to me, you should have had a solution.
The previous clerk was here until end of February and still hadn't done 2 months worth of work, so we're already 2 months behind there. And now you're just, when are we gonna get these things completed? We're already mid-April, and it's just falling behind more and more. We gotta get this.
It's not okay.
Yeah, I'm with you.
And I know, Lisa, and this is nothing, I know you're crazy busy, but there's gotta be an alternative solution.
Yeah, no,
Oh,
it's gotta work.
sorry. Coleman.
Mr. Wickman, is this true? We're breaking the law
In what regard?
by not getting these minutes out?
Well, Councilman Henson is correct. The statutes require, these are the open record statute, they require the minutes to be prepared and approved by the mayor, not the city council. I don't know if this is a custom and
I didn't know that.
not uncommon. A lot of.
It says specifically, shall be open to public inspection at reasonable times no later than immediately following the next meeting of the body.
That is correct, but the problem with the custom that you and other cities have is to delay those minutes until they're approved by the city council. The statutes do not provide for the minutes to be approved by the city council.
Well, then if
They
we've been doing it
provide
wrong- Go ahead,
that
sorry.
the minutes will be prepared and signed by the mayor and the clerk before the next meeting of the city council.
Then why aren't we doing that? I mean,
See-
so either way, we're not abiding by the law.
Okay, but part of the problem is the content of the minutes. The law only requires the minutes to record the actions of the city council. That is, the motions, the vote, and what the results are.
Okay.
They do not require the detailed discussion of the council members. That's what takes the time. If the minutes were limited to what the statute requires, and they only include the actions of the council, not the discussions of the council, the actions of the council, then the preparation of the minutes wouldn't take so long.
Either way, I cannot go online and I cannot access the minutes of the meetings since January 1st, 2025. Whether they're just the actions, whether they're discussions, they're not there. Therefore, we are not abiding by the statute.
That is correct.
Okay.
I'm also pretty sure that we can't go back to previous years and find some of the council meetings and the recordings because some of those have disappeared over the years. Is
So
that
really-
true or not?
It only goes back to 2022. That I don't know why. I've never known why.
But, as David has said, if you get an open records request and somebody wants to see the transcription of that, that ought to be provided in a timely manner, and all of that has to be cached and held onto for X amount of years.
Yes, which we do for forever. They're not X amount of years, it's
but-
forever. But it's all in the clerk's office. It's not required, the statute does not require us to have that online for
No,
ever.
but I ought to be able to come in and say, I would like the minutes from January of 2022, and I ought to have that within the documented time as open records requests allow.
That is true.
Is my understanding.
Yes.
I'm sure in the clerk's office, though, your approved paper minutes that's been approved by councils over many, many years, you ought to be able to put your hands on that at least.
That's what I'm saying. The only thing in question is between January and now.
Well, my question was just what I asked. Because you had said, we don't have anything older than 2022. You said that.
Online.
Okay.
Available online.
Okay, well,
Online.
on the line wasn't mentioned, you said 2022, so I thought, wait a minute. Your paper, you should forever, always have your paper minutes somewhere. If it's 25 years from now, you should still have that. Or 40 years.
Yes,
Okay, clearing that up.
thank you.
Who's responsible from keeping us from breaking the law like this?
I think our city attorney would be.
Well, I mean, because I'm gonna be honest, I don't know, and I don't want to willfully break the law or any rules, so I'm trying to follow them, but like, is there,
So here's a question for Councilor Crupper, since you've been on council for a long time. Is there a specific ordinance the city has adopted that requires the council to approve of the minutes?
I think you can find that in your code of ordinance book.
But it's not on me, so you remember
The
everything.
book's not in front of me, but I think that it's been, and Mr. Wickman can probably help me with that. Typically, always in the past, if you have a month's worth of meetings, meaning two of them, whether it's regularly scheduled, a special call the following month, those minutes were brought to the next regularly scheduled council meeting for approval. You have access to them long before we do. You have them, you put them in a packet, we approve them at the first Monday meeting of the month. That's always been the standard. Does that sound correct, Mr. Wickman?
Well, I'm not familiar what your
That-
previous customs were, but that is not what the statute requires. The statute requires, does not provide for the approval of the minutes by the council at all. It's the function of the clerk and the mayor to do that before the next council meeting and to make them available to the public immediately after that.
So they approve them, so we never have to see them again. Is that what you're saying?
That's what the statute requires.
Is that what the statute says or what our code of ordinance book says?
So I don't know about your code of ordinance.
Well, then
what I
the
was
code of
asking.
ordinance book, I think, is where you need the clarification for the city of Williamstown.
Yes.
Frank, if I may, it says specifically,
Wait, the statute or ordinance?
statute,
Okay.
reasonable times no later than immediately following the next meeting of the body. So it's not before the next meeting, it's immediately following the next meeting of the body.
That's correct.
So we could absolutely approve them at the council meeting.
If we did the minutes every time there was a council meeting. So it wouldn't
Yes.
be, like Prepper said, twice.
It would be once, you're always approving from the previous council meeting.
I'm fine with that, if you guys are.
So, should we be approving some of this meeting from the last meeting?
Yes, she has been extremely swamped and can't do everything on her
Oh,
own.
that's fine, I understand, I know there's a lot going on.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
I'm going to work on Friday, Labor Day has the day off, and get everything caught up. I will have mine done, what the previous clerk did, some of them are done, some of them are not. Some of them have corrections. I will do my best to get those done. But it's gonna take me some time because I wasn't here, so I'm gonna have to review the video. But I will work on mine first, and then I will go back and do hers.
And by no means, Lisa, is this a reflection on you.
I understand.
I just believe a solution should have been made by now. Here we are in April, and we do not have minutes from January, when the former clerk was still here.
Till the end of February.
Any additional conversation on meeting minutes? Perfect, moving forward, discussion of salary, interim fire chief per David, Counselor Henson. Counselor Henson, you have the floor.
Yeah, so just to make clear, my original request on this, Mayor, was discussion on interim superintendents, not just necessarily the fire chief. And I also requested what was the process, and I can show you the email if you so need. But that being said, my main concern was, and Chief Anderson is here, he's our interim fire chief, and I'm being told he's being paid half the pay that previous interim fire chiefs have been paid. I sent you an email a while back asking you about that, inquiring, you said you were working on it, you too wanted to see it changed. And so I've waited 2 or 3 weeks now, and from what I've heard, nothing has changed. I'm just wondering, what's that about?
So once Miss Vivian Leake came in, she was tasked with reviewing the salaries for each department, as that was a big issue that we saw on paper in the budget. My biggest concern, and Chief Anderson and I had discussed this several times, was how much monies were still available for the remainder of the fiscal year in the fire department's salary. Once we got those answers back, Ms. Lisa and I sat down and reviewed it, and we had discussed that with Chief, and we had had some conversation last week. We have not had a chance to write the executive order yet, but that will be done by the end of this week. And it'll be effective starting April 21st.
Okay, so are we going retro? Because he's been doing this job in the past. Okay.
I feel like I told you that. I apologize. if
No,
that's
you did not
clear.
tell me that. And then we have an interim city clerk. Is that the same case?
So, I don't even know what the old city clerk made. No, at the time when I appointed her interim city clerk and wrote the executive order, again, we still were not aware of how much financial impact, especially in the salary in both departments, that it had. And we're just now finding out those now. So, no, did I increase her pay all the way up to what the clerk was making? No, and my conversation with interim chief Todd was that yes, did I offer the, Counselor Smith,
Oh, go ahead, I was just wanting to ask a question when you were done, sorry.
did I offer the pay, at a very specific pay for the fire chief that I appointed and hired last year? Yes, but that is all subject to the approval of council. That did not work the way I anticipated it doing, but I had anticipated hiring that guy as the fire chief. Council wanted to, with the request of the fire department, go through a proper process to do that. So then we chose Josh Willoughby, and we offered the job to Josh. Technically, the way I view this is somebody's interim until council has approved my nomination and appointment.
Okay, so I'm not sure what you just said, but my question would be, are we paying Chief Anderson the same pay that Rick Willoughby got when he was interim chief?
No.
And why not?
Well,
I didn't understand what you were saying.
I offered Rick Willoughby the job. I also offered the job to Joshua Willoughby. With this situation,
He was interim for months. Rick Willoughby was interim chief for months.
because that's the way council wanted that. Go ahead.
What did you start paying Willoughby as the interim chief?
$33 an hour.
$33 an hour. You offered Todd, starting at 18,
He was already making it.
and then you said, I'm gonna give you $3 more. That's as much as I'm gonna give.
Well, they're looking,
So, how's the money not in the budget? Because it's pretty cut and dry, it's right there on your all's list, I know you got them.
We don't
He's putting in the time, he's doing the time, plus his other full-time job. We're supporting him. We told you the first time around, when you tried to railroad us the first time, and that's all it was a railroad. But why isn't he getting paid what Willoughby was getting paid? Why isn't he getting paid what Josh Willoughby was getting paid? Now, I don't know what game you're playing, but I would tell you the pound salt if you threw that up at me, because he's doing the job day in and day out, plus what is expected of him, and trying to be with his family too. 40 hours a week is the salaried job for the fire chief. Comp time should be applied, not overtime. That's the way I was done. Now, that might have changed, don't know, don't care. But I can tell you that he's not getting insurance. General, go ahead, hon.
I just want to say, with all due respect, we have not seen a budget. We don't know. We've not seen these.
Well, then somebody,
That's why we've asked repeatedly.
somebody needs to
for
provide you with a
audit.
budget.
Yes,
And
yes.
tomorrow,
Yes.
I will put in an open records request for the budget. I will get it from Lisa, and I will hand deliver it to each and every one of you.
Thank you.
Because he can go get a budget. She's got the budget. She knows what she's doing. Why ain't they getting their budget? Is it some kind of pissing contest here? That's what it seems to me.
well, I apologize.
But it's a slap in his face. He ain't getting insurance. He's getting non-hazardous duty retirement. I got hazardous duty. Now, there's steps you gotta go through to get it, but he's already in the retirement system. He should be getting hazardous duty. If you don't think it's not a hazardous job, come do it. Comp time, you need to figure that out for him. Is he gonna get overtime or is he gonna get comp time? If he's gonna get comp time, he gets 100 hours that he can carry. I lost 700 hours when I retired. 700. 700 times $33 added up. Because I didn't get my report from the clerk's office from October to the time I retired in April. KLC and the state says any comp time given is an hour and a half for every hour worked over. So if he works 42 hours, he gets 3 hours of comp time. Our policy here at the city has been 100 hours. It was never held in the reins and kept good track of, and I got screwed for 700 hours. I was working on your ambulance patrols when you wanted, and doing my job daily. We put in long hours over there, and he shouldn't deserve to be crapped on. Pay the man what he's worth, and I don't believe you if you say there's not money there. Well, I don't.
I wasn't gonna say
You
that.
can say whatever you want, Mark. I think you're full of crap.
If you allow me.
You've got SAF money. What's out of it? Can't you pay him out of the SAF? Answer, yes or no? Yes or no? He can be paid out of the SAF funds. Police are paying for their salaries out of SAF.
One salary, yes.
Okay, why can't you use some towards him?
Again, what I'm trying to explain to you is, when this happened, I was not sure how much money was left.
Why? You're the mayor.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
Well, I don't think it's right what you're doing to him or anybody else.
Thank you for your input. Counselor Coleman.
So I thought about this myself. So a couple things I see wrong. A is you're expecting a man to do a job and you're not paying him what the job pays. And then you appoint him to be in that position without knowing if we have the money yet or not. So that's wrong. And then the fact that you don't know if we have the money is wrong. I mean, there's a couple wrongs here. Like, I don't understand. Like, I wouldn't hire someone and not know if I have enough to pay them.
Okay, keep in mind I didn't hire. Keep in mind I didn't hire.
Appoint?
That's where this falls down at. When this all went down, I consulted with Frank Wickman. I said, who steps in as the fire chief and the clerk? And he said, the assistant, they have to act as interim.
Well, that's kind of crazy because who was your assistant?
I had two.
Was Rick Willoughby one of those assistants?
No.
Because if that's the case,
My assistants
then
were
would Rick,
Patrick and
so
I had an assistant.
how did Rick
I
become?
didn't have an assistant.
So we just
part-time chief.
bypassed it that time?
No, because he announced his retirement. Somebody just
Okay.
resigned.
Okay, because I'm just trying
Guys,
to add it
thank you for letting me speak. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Liz.
Further, I said, and this is at the time all this went down, I had a lot of concern that the numbers were wrong, especially with the fire department and clerk's department. We needed time to figure that out, which is why I said to Todd, I'm not against paying you back pay. We have to figure this out, because I'd rather make sure that the money's there to carry us for the remainder of the year, as opposed to doing this grand gesture and going, hey, by the way, we need to shut down the department for a month because now we don't have the funds for the remainder of the year. I know the numbers now, but it took time for us to get the numbers. It took Vivian and Crystal several days to sit down and calculate the cost of every department, not just the fire department. And I was also under the impression that he was working as a part-time chief, not full-time, because I knew he had the job in Dry Ridge. So I was under the impression that he was only doing part-time. It wasn't until he and I sat down and discussed this, which is why I was open to offering him a certain amount of money, but maybe not the full amount, because the way I perceive this is Rick Willoughby and Josh Willoughby were working full-time, he was not. But when I was informed he was actually working 40 hours a week, I was like, okay, that puts a different perspective in my mind.
Do you think if you'd have done the audit when we asked you to do it a long time ago, we would have already known that? And it would have been taken care of?
That was my question.
This is what we're getting at, Mark. I mean, our finances are in a mess, and we're not being able to pay people what we want to pay them, stuff like that. And if you'd have listened to us in the past when we said, do the audit, we would have known these numbers, and people wouldn't be in these situations. You wouldn't be in this situation. But I don't know. I don't know anymore.
One example here, listening to everybody that's talked here, Mark, you question whether you had enough money to pay Mr. Anderson. Now, if you had still had Josh Willoughby fully employed here, making 33 an hour.
75,000 is what Josh was making.
Well, he was making 33 an hour. and you would have been paying him all the way through June the 30th of this fiscal year. He's not here no longer. That money's still here. Mr. Anderson stepped in to take the job when Mr. Willoughby resigned. So the money's still there. It's a matter of, yes, he's doing the job. You need to pay the man, period. There's no negotiating him less. At the end of the day, the money is still in that line item to pay that man.
Respectfully, I disagree, because we had a fire chief who was getting insane amounts of overtime.
No, I'm not
and
talking
hazardous
overtime. No,
duty.
stop
So
now.
my
You were talking
question-
$33 an hour. Overtime's over 40. That's different. Now, if he was doing that, you approved that in an executive order. I know you did. So yes, you need to be respectable to pay the man.
And he also ain't taking insurance. That's a savings right there.
My goodness, that's what,
Lisa, how much is insurance
$2,500 a
for
month?
family? She can tell you.
It's expensive.
He's also getting docked on his hazardous duty. The fire chief's job, when I took it
I
in
remember.
2006, was in his hazardous duty after we petitioned. He's already in the system, so I don't even think he got a petition, but I can't.
I'm sure he
answer
is
that.
in hazardous already, aren't you, Todd?
He has a hazardous anyway.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
So he's already invested in that part of it.
yes.
It's just a matter of, if you have the money, I can understand what your concern is now of all the excessive overtime, if it drained down that lineup. I get that part
That
of it.
was my main concern.
Well, look at it and get squared up with the man. Don't do it next week. Do it tomorrow. Come clean with it and do it tomorrow.
As I said earlier, last week, we found that out, and he and I had a sit-down conversation. It's a matter of getting the executive order signed.
Yeah, but you're still saying you're not gonna pay him the same as the last interim chief. He's doing the same job. He deserves the same pay. So, and why it took so long, this long to find out how much money was there, to me is crazy. To me, the day after the former clerk left, I would have been in there finding out where every single cent was. But again, we put it off.
And he doesn't sound like he's answered the question about Lisa either.
No, yeah.
No,
It's not fair to her.
I gave the answer already.
No, he said he doesn't know what the past clerk made. He's only the mayor.
Didn't you sign the past clerk's pay when she gave herself overtime and a raise? I mean, didn't you have to approve all that?
Here's something else I don't understand from where you start a fire chief off. I started off in 2006 at $45,000 a year. It took me 25 years to go up in pay. But you bring somebody in and put them in at the same salary that I was earning when I left. I guess that's what you thought you needed to do, but you never asked me. But I can tell you that incentives are there to protect and move yourself forward and improve yourself and prove that you're doing the job. And just to say, I'm gonna give you $80,000 a year to come in and be the new fire chief, doesn't necessarily work out to improve yourself. I mean, that's up to council and them to set the scale, I guess. But we have different grades within the city, and we can move up through those grades. So you have quite a bit of leeway, and obviously you've taken that leeway to set that bar up pretty high to bring a new fire chief in at $33 an hour, when you might want to say, all right, we're going to start you off at 28, and after 6 months, and you've proven that you can show that you can perform the job, and after a year, we'll give you a bump at that. That's the way I've always done it and been treated in my life, even in the private sector. So it's performance-based. He's doing the job, pay the man. Yes, I'm a little ticked off that he's being mistreated. Thank you, David, for pointing it out. Thank you for the council members for stepping up to the plate, but I agree with him. Take care of it tomorrow.
Counselor Maines.
If Todd didn't take it over, we probably might not have a fire department. And he deserves the money. And I'll tell you what, I sit over and I get so aggravated since I've been on, we ain't done nothing. We talk about it, you know, and it just aggravates, you know. You got them coming up here about the marina, nothing's been done. You know, we gotta do something. I mean, we wanted to audit, we gotta audit, you know. And Les, right, I mean, we gotta do something. We said that the last time. We need to audit, we need to pay the man. I mean, we wouldn't have had a fire department, I guarantee you that. I don't hear, since he's took over, I don't hear nothing out of all of them. And they talk to me too. But we need to do something. I mean, it just aggravates me here. Our wheels, you know, keep rolling and they never, you know, we never get nothing done. I mean, I sit over here quiet, and I just, you know, it just builds up in me, you know. We gotta get the water situation done, you know. We got other stuff out there that we need to be done, but we can't do it because we, you know, ain't got the right tools to do it with.
Thank you for your input. I appreciate it. All right, moving on. Marina update for...
Before we move on, what's your plans? Are you gonna take care of this tomorrow?
Yes, I said I would. I
Okay,
said
I'm just, I didn't
not-
hear,
not
there's
to
a
be
lot of
rude.
people talking, so I
Yes.
was just asking. I didn't catch it, I'm sorry.
Yes,
So it'd be, and with Miss Lisa, you'll find out what the other one made?
yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I guess that, but however, and I explained this to both parties, that keep in mind, the fire department requests a very specific way they went about getting a new fire chief. But when that time comes, if he's not the chosen candidate as fire chief, he will have to go back down in his pay. Same applies to her. If she is not the chosen candidate for the clerk, then she will have to go down in pay.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, Marina update. Last week, we had the sealed bid, and it came in from M&M, and it came in at $202,000. This week, we had a meeting with M&M and Mark Cummins, I always say that wrong, myself and City Attorney Wickman to discuss how to proceed forward. I think there were some miscommunications that M&M was under the impression that we were either asking to do or their recommendations of things that they wanted to do that we simply did not see that was needed to be done. I know after that meeting, Mark went out with Mr. Beach from M&M to review the marina. Would you care to give insight on how that went?
Yeah, so we went down to the marina to discuss some stuff, so, about half of what they had in their bid, we didn't need. They had that they were gonna dig it all up, put it all in, so we walked out how we was going to proceed with the line and all the alerts and the POS systems not needed. So, at the meeting, we discussed that after this meeting we had with M&M, that Frank is gonna write up the proposal to put it back in the paper for another bid session, and they're gonna resubmit their new bid, which he said in the car ride back that what we are gonna do should drop it significantly. And also got a hold of Growl. Growl has theirs ready to submit as well. So with this next bid session, we should have 2 bids come in. That'll give us a much better idea of what it's really gonna cost. And the boat dock has been started, the pipes are drove, and lumber is down there. So, that's about as close an update I can give.
It's a good update.
So, it was actually a very productive meeting today.
Any additional questions?
I would like to make sure that this marina update is on the agenda for the first Monday in May, as well as the third Tuesday in May. We want to I would like for the progress to continue forward so you all can get back in business as soon as you can.
Frank, will you get that, bid packet together to put in the mail, in the paper next week? Oh, yeah.
They may not go out next week, given that this is towards the end of the week.
Well, won't you have it in by Tuesday before we get in the paper by Thursday?
Yeah,
Is that
so,
not how it is?
yeah, so it won't be in next week's paper. We won't be able to get it into the news until next Tuesday.
I think it has to be in Thursday
If you go to tour by
before you want it to run.
If you have it in Thursday, it can be in next week's paper.
I think, I'm not sure about the Good Friday, if the Good Friday messes with the deadline, but I do not think so.
So if you get in by this Thursday, it can be in the paper next week.
Yep.
You gonna do that?
I'm sorry, I can't hear very well.
Will you be able to get that done?
Have this submitted to the news by Thursday of this week.
Today's Tuesday.
Yeah.
So the question is, can I have it done yet tomorrow?
Yeah.
I'm just asking, I don't know.
Thursday.
I've got a pretty full schedule tomorrow. I really do.
We're back at.
What time Thursday?
I'm not sure.
I think it's closed of business.
I might be able to get it done Thursday. I will not be able to get it done tomorrow.
However, all right, I
Okay.
appreciate it.
Okay, moving on. Highway 25/36 sign per Kim Crupper. Councilor Crupper, you have the floor.
Yes, I had that put back on the agenda tonight for the progress of I know the sign committee had worked, from the sound of our last meeting, that they'd worked for the last 2 or 3 months together to come up with a sign. And I guess in clarification, I wanted to make sure that you indeed had a genuine lease, I guess, from the railroad. I know it's been a long-term lease. You just basically had to make the payment to renew it. And I want to make sure that that has genuinely been done and move forward. My understanding, this sign committee had been meeting how long since, Jenna?
We started at the first of the year.
First of the year. So when they started the first of the year, did we in fact have a lease, or had the lease been terminated? Had it been paid? Had they been just kind of riding along, assuming that they were committed with time to make sure we could have a sign there with a genuine lease? That's my question.
Yes, so the lease, I did submit a letter to Norfolk Railroad to begin the process of termination. However, for whatever reason, I don't know, they never really reviewed it or anything. So when I reached out to them in February, they said that we could continue if you wanted. I said, no, actually, we want to keep the lease in place. We got the bill. I reached out to them, I think it was like 2 weeks ago. They said that they had yet to receive the bill, so Miss Lisa and I sent it out again last week. I'm waiting for a response back to confirm that they have received that bill. But yeah, everything's a go still.
Man, when we met last meeting, Jason asked you a couple of times, had me send that check out. You assured him that we did. He asked for a receipt. Did he get that receipt?
No, so we submitted a bill, but they never got it. So, a check, I guess, rather. So they never received it,
So you didn't send the check out to the next day after the meeting, is that correct?
I followed up with them to see if they had received it yet. They said they had not, so we resubmitted a check, yes.
So you told us you sent it, it was gone, but the very next day you sent it.
Again, yes.
Okay.
Yes, because we received the bill at the beginning of February, and at that point, it had already been long determined that we were gonna proceed, so we sent the check in, but they never got it for whatever reason.
Do you have a?
If you sent a check in, do you have a check number?
Copy of the checkbook, or do you have a?
So Ms. Lisa and I looked into that, we couldn't find it, so my assumption
My
is.
guess is the check never went out, and that for the first time the check went out was the day after you told us the check already.
So that happened probably more times than I would like to begin to count. when Alex comes with the clerk. I would ask if checks had been sent, she would say yes, and then I would get your 90 days past due.
There's only so many times you can blame the past clerk for the situation.
Get up and go verify it.
From what
Do you have what?
Get up and go verify it. Quit taking some of these answers. That's what meters do. So make excuses.
My guess is a check never went out. It went out the day after you told us the check already did go out.
Counselor Coleman.
Something struck me there funny, Mark, because before you told me that you was unaware that we had late payments, but now you're telling me that you thought a check would be sent out and then you would get a call later saying we were behind. I didn't think you was aware that we was behind on any payments.
Yeah, I made that clear at a council meeting. I said I had received a phone call from USG Water Solutions asking about the 90 days past due payment. And I said, what are you talking about? There were payments that were supposed to have been paid last year that when I inquired about them being paid, I was assured that those were paid and sent. So I didn't think any more of them until I received a phone call from them, and then in March I received an email from a company, I didn't remember who it was, but they were saying the same thing.
Jenna, by the way, y'all did, I think the sign looks great. It's the first time I got to see it.
Yeah, it's just,
Well,
yeah,
the
we're
sketching,
pulling some ideas
that-
together.
I
Yes,
thought that
thank
looked
you.
good, by the way.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
And then we're going to, there's going to be an application with tourism to get some additional funding for the signage.
The flyers here in the front, can we use our local flyer shop?
It's a great idea.
Just a thought. If we ever get paid for it.
All right. Let's take a roll call to adjourn.
So can we get the 2025 meeting minutes on the website? There's none.
We had a very lengthy, long conversation about this already.
I was just, just asking. It didn't post on Facebook, but it's on there. And, so, I think it was posted today that the meeting minutes are on. The agendas are, but the meeting minutes are on. And we have, as a citizen, the right to be using these minutes. So can you get those on there, and when can you get them on there?
Yeah, so we're gonna work on that this week and review our code of ordinance and proceed very soon, probably by next week.
Like 5 minutes, we need it on there.
Need a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Counselor Payne, seconded by
I'll second that motion.
Counselor Coleman, roll call.
Tom Coleman,
Yes.
Ken Pepper.
Yes.
David Henson.
Yes.
Ronnie Mays.
Yes.
Jason Payne. Jenna Smith.
All right, meeting adjourned.